Jimmy Butler's agent doing some damage control on the reported interest of the Miami Heat moving on from Jimmy Butler. We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, Charania doubles down after Jimmy Butler's agent goes off. We're going to take a look at that, plus the NBA Cup brackets, all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Trae Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the comment in the content for today. And so, hey, there's always some drama around the NBA, and it never fails, especially around this time of year between players not living up to expectations, things like that. It always seems to be something going on around the league that just leads you to it just being drama. And drama's good for business. It's good for business. I hate it. I'm not a drama-filled person, right? I'm a petty person, but not really a drama-filled person. But when you get an agent and, a writer in Charania, snapping back at each other, hey, listen, first of all, we haven't seen typically a lot of people snap back at Shams in his reporting. We just don't see a lot of that, right? So yesterday, Jimmy Butler's agent, Bernie Lee, came out and said this: anything associated with Jimmy's position and using my name as a tool to submit a headline, Jimmy's job is to perform at his job and do the best to his many abilities and to drive that team to win. As of today, Jimmy analytically grades out as approximately the 6th-8th best player in the NBA. 6th to 8th best player in the NBA, and his team has almost a plus 10-point differential when his usage is over 20. The Golden State Warriors, when they won at 73 games, were a plus 11.6. He's doing his job really well, and that is the focus, which in turns makes it my focus. Now, he also said this in regards to Shams directly. All right, listen, I gave you a pass yesterday because I was busy, but if you don't stop putting my name on your complete and utter made-up bull, because you know you normally aren't worth my time to acknowledge. I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm a middle-aged dad, but I just know it would indicate several severe dislike. World, all this is fabricated. I have never, and honestly, it would help me or my position to I represent to do anything that's been reported by said journalists. We've never seen somebody snap back at Shams like that, ever. And Shams remained pretty much quiet after that time, but then yesterday he doubled down on it, saying this: the Phoenix Suns are another team that Jimmy Butler's agent, Bernie Lee, has indicated in league circles that the 6-time All-Star is open as a destination. While Miami listens to trade offers, so that's what he put on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X after that. But then today we get even. I think people need to remember Shams is from Chicago, right? And Shams said this: I 1,000% stand by my reporting. It's fully vetted, and as a professional, that's what I do. That's what I get paid to do. Report truthfully and accurately. That's what this is. Period. Very simple response from Shams in regards to back on Bernie Lee and what he said. And I love this. Not even for the petty aspect of it, not even for the aspect of the conversation around basketball, but as a reporter, right, people are quick because, they can't reveal their sources, right? So people do, and you can try to attack a reporter and say, hey, that's not what's fact. They're just making shit up. But it's good. And usually, in most cases, most people in Shams' position would just ignore it, keep it pushing, do their thing. And I love that Shams came out and was like, nah. We're not finna do this. You're not finna question my integrity. I stand by what I reported 1,000%, and it is what it is. Now, I do think this, right? It is one of the obvious things coming into the season that with the Miami Heat and their, them not extending Jimmy Butler, it opened up the door to look like Jimmy Butler could be moved, right? And the reporting is the Miami Heat are listening to offers and that Jimmy Butler could have a list of preferred destinations. I refuse to believe that not every player in the back of their mind, knowing that in this type of situation, even if it is just going into free agency, if he decides to opt out, has a list of teams that they would be interested, or in the back of the mind says, no, I wouldn't mind playing for this team. I like what they're doing over there if I am a free agent next year. So even if that's what it is, right? And then it's being added to this rumor of Miami Heat listening to offers, it still makes some sense when it comes down to it. So while, this is all great, I love that Shams, stands by his reporting. I love that Bernie Lee stood up and defended his client and even talked about the basketball aspect of it. Like, hey, This is what Jimmy's doing when he's on the court, and we've seen Jimmy Butler's woken up a lot. The question is how much is Jimmy Butler going to be able to maintain that, and how much do the Miami Heat need him to for them to be the team that they've looked like more recently than what they started off the season with? But, all this drama to just come down and say this. If it comes down to Jimmy Butler is a member of the Miami Heat or not a member of the Miami Heat, that's out of everybody's hands. It's out of Bernie Lee's hands. It's out of Charania's hands. It really comes down to one man and one man alone. That's Pat Riley, right? And so if Pat Riley is listening to offers, and even if Jimmy Butler doesn't have a list of preferred teams, which I refuse to believe because I just would think that would be idiotic on Jimmy's part, not to look at some teams and survey the landscape of where he could potentially go with free agency, looking him dead in his face as soon as after this season. If he's moved, he's moved. And, the Texas teams make sense. I did talk on yesterday how difficult it may be for him to go to to the Dallas Mavericks. Houston, if they really want to give up the young talent needed to even match salaries to get Jimmy Butler there. And then, now with the Phoenix Suns opening up, that makes a lot of sense for Jimmy Butler as well with the veteran talent that they have there. So it would make some sense there. All these teams make sense if Jimmy Butler really wants a win-now situation, which is something that we've heard. It just comes down to, does it get done? That's what it all boils down to. Does the deal get done? And if it does, what then does that look like? So, we'll see what happens there. I think that this is one of the more fun things. This season has been a fun season. All right, we're like 25 games in from each team, and it's been a really fun season. We just got to see if it's going to continue to go and what the future holds for Jimmy or any other players that are out there potentially out on the trade market. We'll see what happens there. But I think when you look at what's going on right now is that there are a lot of teams right now that could use Jimmy Butler's services. And if the Miami Heat truly do want to go into a different destination, then, we'll see. It also came out, now this is one that I don't believe, that the Nets are Jimmy Butler's preferred in free agency, maybe just because they can pay him. But what are we talking about here? Right? The Nets? Come on, man. This one came from Lewis, who was like, hey, I'll read it directly. This was come from Brian Lewis of the New York Times. Says this: Brooklyn is and would remain his first choice to the extent that he's fine with playing out the year, opting out and signing there as a free agent. Brooklyn? Really? The Brooklyn Nets? Okay. If they were to keep Cam Thomas, great. Or maybe, if they were to get Cooper Flagg, maybe that case, but still, they're still far off from really competing, it looks like. But, we'll see how that boils down. Let me know your guys' thoughts on all this drama and everything down below. With that said, let's get into basketball. Yesterday was an exciting day. Both games in the NBA Cup games to move on to the semifinals, they both had their own interest and intrigue. The Houston Rockets game against the Golden State Warriors literally came down to the wire, the last seconds, and won on free throws by Jalen Green, who made 2 free throws with 3.5 seconds left. And the Houston Rockets snapped their 15-game slide against the Warriors, winning for the first time since February 20th, 2020. And so now the Rockets move on to face the OKC Thunder, they beat Dallas. And so Alperen Şengün in this game, 26 points, 11 rebounds, Jabari Smith with 15 points. And the Houston Rockets had a 15-point lead before, it set up that finish with, the Golden State Warriors going on a 32-24 run in that third quarter to really make this game interesting again. And this was a game that was just fun. This was a playoff atmosphere type game. You had Kuminga with 20 points, Steph Curry with 19, Buddy Hield with 15. He's in the starting lineup as well. Not a lot that we got off the bench for the Golden State Warriors in this game, but the Houston Rockets, a team that are just on the rise, right? 26 points for Alperen Şengün, which is great to see. Jabari Smith with 15 points as well. Jalen Green had 12 points. He had those game-sealing free throws that he hit as well. Amen Thompson with 10 points in this game. And the lineup, right? Ime Udoka only went 8 deep into his bench. 8 deep in his rotation. Only 3 players played off the bench. And you could tell that both teams were competing and they wanted to get these wins. The Houston Rockets now moved to 17-8 on the season. But of course, because of that finish, which I said each one of these, this is just a drama-filled episode, right? This is what it comes down to. When it goes like Steph Curry in the decision that put Jalen Green on the free throw line in that game, he said this. I've never seen a loose ball foul on a jump ball situation 80 feet from the basket with the game on the line. I think I saw it in college one time 30 years ago, never in the NBA. That's crazy. That is unconscionable. I don't even understand what just happened. I'm stunned. I don't think an elementary school official would have made that call in the game. Listen, that is absolutely blasting a ref. And I would not be surprised if Steve Kerr does get a fine because of that, because the NBA has not really played with criticizing refs, especially not to that degree. But there is something to be said with that. It did seem like a call that I think everybody was kind of shocked by. Like, not that they called the stoppage or anything like that, but to call it for a foul that sent Jalen Green to the free throw line. If you go back and listen to the announcers, I believe that game was on TNT, everybody was kind of shocked that ended up being the call. Now, with that said, the ref in that case he's actually one of the more respected refs in the NBA. He's actually one of the refs that a lot of people look at positively in the NBA, but over that, like, every official has gotten calls wrong. So it's not like he's outside just because he's a favorable official or anything like that, or you could say that he didn't make a mistake. It'll be interesting to see what the NBA comes out and says about this eventually, if they even do make a statement on it. But overall, like, despite the drama, and sometimes that's what makes games great, right? I want to be clear there. That is sometimes what makes the storylines of the games great, is sometimes the drama that's included around it. And this was not a game that did not have its own share of the drama, and it did. And so, overall, I look at it and I say this. Great job overall by both teams to compete in this game. The Golden State Warriors fighting to get back in this game and to make it interesting, and for it to feel like that victory that they could have gotten was snatched from them. But that's the game of basketball. It's whatever way the ball bounces. And unfortunately, officiating is an aspect of the sport that, it's going to affect games at times. Now, I want to hear from you guys down below. Let me know. Do you think that this was the right call? Do you think it was the wrong call? Do you think Steve Curry, I'm mixing their names, that Steve Kerr is right for what he said after the game? Or do you think it's just Steve Kerr being a little bit upset, of course, by the results, understandably so? And let me know what you guys feel on that down below. The next game, though, the Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young he owns New York. Like, him in New York is special. And in this game, the Hawks won 108-100 against the New York Knicks in this game. 21 points from Jalen Johnson as well, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. As much as it's going to be made about Trae Young and what he did at the end of the game, we got to acknowledge that Jalen Johnson played an absolute great game against the New York Knicks in this one. 41 minutes, leading the Hawks in all minutes played. And like I said, I know a lot's going to be made about Trae and what he did at the end of the game, but we got to acknowledge that Jalen Johnson is just having such a huge impact in the way that he's growing. I would love to have a young player like Jalen Johnson on my team, right? And maybe, I'm a Bulls fan. Maybe Manas Bucelis develops into that, but Jalen Johnson is he continues to grow and show that he can be somebody that's a building block at least. I don't know yet if he's somebody you can build around, but he is somebody that you absolutely can build stuff with. And that's great to see how he performed in this game. Clint Capella with the double-double as well, 11 and 13. Trae Young going only 8 of 22 in this game, but 11 assists, 5 rebounds, 22 points. When it mattered the most, Trae Young made the big shots. 24 points from DeAndre Hunter off the bench as well. So this was a game where the Hawks just had it, where the Knicks didn't seem like they did at times. Jalen Brunson, 5 of 15 for 14. We know that this Knicks team has difficult with their offense when Jalen Brunson isn't on. And that's one thing that was evident in this game as well and early on. And so, listen, here's the thing. I'm not saying – I don't think that the Hawks are a better team than the New York Knicks. But sometimes it comes down to matchups and also performance. And the Knicks, who I think they were 4-0 in group play, they just didn't really have the necessary execution in this game. 26% shooting from three, and they took 42 of them. That's always going to hurt you. Now, the Hawks weren't much better. They were 9 of 31 for 29% from three overall in this game. And, it just came down to who made the big plays down the stretch. And the Hawks made those big plays down the stretch of this game. You got 19 points from Mikal Bridges, 13 from OG Anunoby, 19 from Karl Anthony Towns, and 21 from Josh Hart. As I said before, the leading scorer off the bench was Cam Payne. And, overall, the Hawks won this game. Now, this game was not without its own ending drama as well, in which after the game, Trae Young went to the New York Knicks sign and did the roll of the dice there. And I love Jalen Brunson's response after this. And this is a competitive response, right? He said this: we should win the game if we don't want him to do that, right? Didn't say, hey, that's disgusting. Trae Young should never do that. He put the onus on him and his team. And as a competitor, I respect that from Trae Young. I actually gained more respect from Trae Young. I'm not sorry, from Trae Young, from Jalen Brunson with that response. And I think that was a good thing there. Now, of course, there's going to be controversy, but Trae Young in Madison Square Garden is like, it's amazing. It is what it is. He keeps cooking the New York Knicks. I mean, what can you do? With Trae Young against the Knicks is damn near God tier. And that's what's wild about all of this is that Trae Young just owns the New York Knicks. And I mean, they're gonna have to figure it out if they really, because listen, this could be a matchup in the playoffs. You never know. Now, with that said, I mean, let's be clear. Trae Young has a 17-14 record historically over the New York Knicks. But then when you look at the last, like Trae Young, in the last handful of games against the Knicks, dating back to 2022, that's the last time he didn't score at least 30 against the Knicks, and that was 28. Then before that, it was 40, 34, 39. I mean, listen, those like he has big performance against the Knicks, so you got to get that together. Trae Young, great player. I still think he has his flaws. Like, I'm not the biggest Trae Young guy, but overall, you got to acknowledge what he's been able to do against the New York Knicks. And I was reading minutes, not points. My bad. In the last few games against the Knicks, 22, 23, 15, 18, 19, 27. So yeah, he's playing really good against the Knicks, and he really just owns the Knicks, man. He owns them right now. So we'll see what happens there, man. But great game. Great overall NBA Cup action so far this year. And so now we move into the semifinals, where it's now set up for the Bucks versus the Atlanta Hawks. And here's what I'll say. If you asked me about that matchup early in the season, I would have said I would have picked the Atlanta Hawks. But with the Milwaukee Bucks and the way they've been playing defense, and Dame and Giannis have been able to go off, it's going to be a tall test defensively for that Hawks team against the Milwaukee Bucks. But for that, we've seen the Bucks sometimes struggle against teams that shoot high volume of threes. And so if the Hawks are making their threes in that game and Trae Young is going off, it could get a little interesting. But I'm still predicting the Milwaukee Bucks to come out of this one. And then you look on the west side of things. You got the Thunder versus the Houston Rockets. This is the matchup that I wanted because of the youth aspect of both these teams. Now, the OKC Thunder are far ahead of the Houston Rockets as far as in their development and what they've shown so far. But the Houston Rockets are another young team with some draft assets, and they're a team that's developing and trying to compete, right? And so, the Rockets, I always tend to look at the Rockets. Young teams don't tend to really have huge success in the playoffs right away. But this way that this Houston Rockets team has been performing against some of the better teams in the Western Conference, that could, we'll see what it comes down to. But overall, listen, this Rockets and Thunder matchup is going to be one for the ages. And it's the 1 and 2 seed when it comes down to that. And overall, we'll see, man. Hey, this is the game that I'm most excited about. And I probably will be live after this game, even though we don't do a lot of live post-game shows, because that game and both that night, Saturday night, is going to be fun on the 14th to watch the Milwaukee Bucks against the Atlanta Hawks, and then the OKC Thunder against the Houston Rockets. And here's the thing: in this Thunder Rockets matchup, it's difficult to bet against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and now that Isaiah Hartenstein is there, and just how that team is able to play defense as consistently as what they are. But I think that this game is going to come down to the wire, and the way and how well coached both these teams are. That's what's going to make this matchup really interesting, is it comes down to the X's and O's for both teams, and they're both really sound in that. And so, of course, you're looking at the big performances in these games and who's going to have that type of run. But overall, I think that we're geared up for an exciting night of basketball on the 14th. And while I have the OKC Thunder winning, and then that will put the Thunder versus the Bucks in the NBA Cup for the Emirates Cup in the championship game, I mean, you can make a case for either team in either one of these semifinal matchups to come out of their respective conferences. And so it's going to be a fun night of basketball. But I want to hear from you guys on this one again down below. Who do you have coming out of the semifinals to go to the championship game? Let me know that down below. Who do you have picked? Who do you have pegged? Who's your favorite? Do you look at any of these as a potential upset? Let me know that down below. But overall, it's going to be a fun time and a fun night of basketball coming up. And a lot of these other teams have been getting nights off. So we got Saturday with those games, and then turn around, and then on the 17th, that is the final game. And so, on Tuesday, we will get that championship game in the Emirates Cup, and we get to see who comes out and gets a host and put up a banner for the NBA Cup. But let me know what you got. And what do you guys thought about the NBA Cup overall? I came into this initially when this was announced as somebody not high on this being a thing, but the brand of basketball, the officiating, all that's been really good over this period of time. But let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799 for the number one spot for everything basketball related. And I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.